Settle yourself comfortably. Let your breathing slow. There is no rush here. Tonight, we drift back many centuries to a time before electricity, before private bedrooms, before silence at night meant loneliness. In a medieval world, sleep was not a solitary act. It was shared. It was warm. It was deeply human. Imagine a small medieval home. Low ceiling, walls of wood, stone, or packed earth. A single room for most families. One fire glowing softly as the sun disappears. As darkness arrives, the household does not scatter into separate rooms. Instead, they draw closer together. Beds were precious. Mattresses were rare. Space was limited. And warmth. Warmth could mean survival. In many medieval homes, the entire family slept in one bed, or on bedding laid close together on the floor. Parents, children, sometimes grandparents, sometimes even infants wrapped tightly in cloth. This was not seen as strange. It was normal, comforting, safe. The medieval night was dark in a way we no longer know. No streetlights, no glowing screens, no hum of distant traffic. Only shadows, only wind, only the soft crackle of dying embers. Sleeping alone, especially for a child, would have felt frightening. Shared sleep meant protection. If danger came, someone would wake. If illness struck, someone would notice. If a child cried in the night, a hand was already there. Beds themselves were simple. A wooden frame if the family was fortunate. Straw mattresses, known as pallets, stuffed with dried grass, hay, or reeds. Covered with wool blankets or rough linen sheets. These beds were firm, uneven, sometimes noisy as straw shifted beneath the body. But they were warm, and warmth mattered more than comfort. Winter nights in medieval Europe were long. Cold seeped through walls and floors. The fire rarely burned all night. Fuel was expensive. Bodies became blankets. Parents slept on the outside, children tucked between them. The youngest closest to the center, where warmth lingered longest. This arrangement was practical, but it also created closeness. Medieval families were physically familiar with one another. They shared space constantly. They worked together, ate together, and slept together. Privacy, as we understand it today, was not expected. Life was communal by necessity. At night, clothing was minimal, not for comfort, but for warmth. Many slept in the same garments worn during the day. Others wrapped themselves in wool cloaks or blankets. Nightwear, as a separate concept, barely existed for common people. As sleep slowly arrived, the sounds of the household softened. Breathing synchronized. Children shifted, then grew still. The room filled with the gentle rhythm of rest. Outside, animals moved in the darkness. An owl called. Wind brushed against the walls. Inside, the family remained together, unaware that centuries later, this way of sleeping would seem unusual. But for them, it was life. It was trust. It was the quiet reassurance that no one was alone in the dark. And as the night deepened, sleep wrapped the household, layer by layer, like a heavy wool blanket. As the fire dimmed and the last sounds of the village faded, the medieval night truly began. For children, sleep arrived differently than it does today. There were no bedtime stories read from books, no soft lamps left glowing, no doors closed to create private rooms. Instead, children learned to sleep surrounded by life, They drifted off to the sound of breathing, to the creak of wood, to whispered prayers, to the steady presence of their family close beside them. A medieval child rarely slept alone, and because of that, fear behaved differently. The dark was not empty, it was shared. Children feared the night, yes, but they feared being alone far more. The medieval world was full of unseen dangers. People believed deeply in spirits, demons, and wandering souls. The night was thought to be a time when the barrier between worlds grew thin. Stories passed from generation to generation warned of things that moved in darkness, of shadows with intent, of illnesses sent by unseen forces. But children did not face these fears alone. If a child stirred from a dream, there was a parent's arm, a sibling's warmth, a familiar voice murmuring reassurance. Nightmares were not analyzed, they were comforted. A mother might whisper a prayer, a father might trace a protective symbol in the air. A grandmother might quietly chant words learned long ago. Faith and folklore blended seamlessly. Before sleep, many households followed small rituals, not elaborate, not written down, but deeply felt. The fire would be banked carefully, ashes pulled over embers to preserve heat, doors checked, animals settled. Then came prayer. Prayer was not only religious, it was practical. It was protection. Families prayed for warmth, for health, for safety through the night. Children learned these prayers by repetition, long before they understood their meaning. Hands were folded, eyes closed, voices low. And when prayer ended, sleep followed naturally. Illness, however, changed everything. Medieval nights were especially dangerous for the sick. Without medicine as we know it, families relied on vigilance. When someone was unwell, they were never left alone at night. A child with a fever might be kept between parents, so changes in breathing or warmth would be noticed instantly. A coughing infant was monitored constantly, hands placed gently on the chest, ears listening for troubling sounds. Sleep became lighter, more watchful. In these moments, shared beds became a form of care. If a child worsened during the night, help could be summoned quickly. If a fever broke, relief spread through the household. These long nights left their mark. Families learned one another's rhythms intimately. They knew the sound of healthy sleep. They knew when something was wrong. Even in health, children often woke during the night. There was no expectation that sleep should be uninterrupted. People rose naturally with the rhythms of darkness. Many experienced what historians now call first sleep and second sleep. Families would fall asleep shortly after nightfall, wake for a short period near midnight, then return to rest. During this quiet waking time, parents might talk softly. A child might nurse. A prayer might be whispered. Then sleep came again. Children grew up believing this was normal, because it was. The concept of forcing sleep or worrying about schedules did not exist. Sleep followed the body, not the clock. As children grew older, they gradually gained independence in sleep, but not immediately. Older children might sleep on pallets nearby, on benches, on the floor close to the bed. Distance increased slowly, never suddenly. This gradual separation built confidence, not anxiety. By adolescence, some children slept in lofts or shared spaces with siblings of the same gender. But the memory of shared warmth remained. Even into adulthood, many people felt uncomfortable sleeping entirely alone. The medieval night taught them that safety lived in closeness, that rest was something shared. As dawn approached, the household stirred. Sleep lightened. Birdsong filtered through cracks in walls and shutters. Children shifted. Parents rose quietly. The bed, once crowded and warm, slowly emptied. But the sense of connection lingered. Another night survived. Another dawn reached. And so it went, night after night, year after year. A rhythm older than written history. In our modern world, where sleep is often solitary, measured and monitored, this way of resting may seem distant. But the body remembers. Warmth, breath, presence. These are ancient comforts. And somewhere deep inside, the medieval night still whispers, "You are not alone. You are safe. It is okay to rest."